Welcome to part E of the Summer Bootstrap webpage project. We are now getting down to the nitty gritty and finishing this off by adding some things that just make it a little bit more aesthetically pleasing. So at this point, we kind of have an issue, and that is that our container section, so the three rows that we have going one right after another, they're kind of crammed together. You know, this one is touching the top of this picture is touching the top of the card, this card's touching the top of this border. It's not the most attractive thing ever. So we're going to make some just minor changes to some of these things and add one more component, actually two more components to our document. So let's get to it. One of the things that you can do in Bootstrap is you can add padding. So I'm going to search for padding to show you. But you can go to the spacing utilities, and when you get in here, it will show you that they have shortcuts. One is M and one is P. So if you're wanting to increase a margin, you could put M and dash and a number, or if you want to increase padding, it's P dash and a number. If you wanted to do it on one side or another, then you use a T or a B for top or bottom, L or R for left or right. So if I wanted to add a margin to the top, for instance, let's say maybe in your footer, if you wanted to have a bigger gap between that bottom and there, you would put a M and a T and then a dash and a number. And the numbers range from 0 to 5. They are not pixels. They have to do with some sort of a spacer, and I'm not sure how big that spacer is, but it multiplies by the size of that spacer. So I have found that for mine, some padding of a 4 looks pretty good, but you can mess around with these different numbers and just see what looks good for you. So to add that padding, we're going to be adding it to our rows. So I need to locate those rows. So right here, again, it's a Bootstrap class that's already created, so we just have to type it in here. So P4, I'm going to hit run, and we'll see what that looks like. And see, that pulled that off of that. And it pulled this one off of the card. Now, of course, I can't see it. There we go. So you can see it pulled it off of there. Let's go ahead and look at it full screen and see what that looks like. Yeah, see, that already looks better. We don't have that going on there, and we don't have that going on there. Now, I added padding on all sides because I just put P4, but you could have just added padding on the top, or whatever you need. All right, let's go ahead and do the same thing to the remaining rows. Since that P4 looks pretty good, I'm going to do the old copy paste and come down and find the next one. So I'm just going to close this row because it'll make it easier to find this row, and paste it in, and then close this row to make it easier to find this row and paste it in. We'll go ahead and run and refresh and see how that's looking. Yes, that spacing is much nicer. So real simple there. That's all you got to do to do that. And because we've added that padding now, that's also lifted this box up off of this nav bar that's at the bottom. So that looks better down there as well. Okay, next step, we're going to round this picture. So we're going to make it a circle by using, again, a Bootstrap element. So you can go in here and type rounded to locate it, but what we're looking for is utilities and borders. And if we go into utilities and borders, it's going to bring us up to this, and we're looking for a border radius. And maybe you've coded that before yourself. A border radius is what creates rounded edges. But you just have to find the one here. So to create a completely round image, and since ours is a square, it would be, you would then come over here and use this class, rounded circle. That's all I got to do. So I got to go find my image, which we know is in the top row. So here's my top row, and it's on the right hand side. So here it is. And then I'm just going to add that in there. So rounded, was it rounded circle? Look, I'm already questioning myself. Rounded circle, yeah. Okay, let's hit run. Pull this over, and yeah, now we have a circle. So we're good to go there. So that's the second one. The next thing we're going to do is add yet another Bootstrap component. This time, let's click on Components, and we're going to find Badge. I'm going to ask that you actually use a pill badge, and let me show you the differences. So here's just your standard badge. And then there's other badges that are a little bit different. So this is just your standard badge. These are your pill badges. So standard have more of a rounded rectangle, and the pill have more of an oval. So let's go ahead and just use a pill badge. It's basically the class's badge, badge pill, and then whatever color you want. So in the example, I used secondary as my color. Remember, this just means this is the color. If you wanted to go with that gold color, then you could use the one that says warning, but you can choose any of those built-in colors. And then we're just going to pick one of your places to, or one of your things that you do that we want to kind of highlight. So my example here, I put by beach, I put hopefully soon. So just make a comment next to one of these headings, one of these subheadings. Totally up to you as to which one you put it on, but that's going to be where your cards are. So I got to find the right row here. It's not that row, it's my middle row. And then, say I want to say can't wait here, then before I turn this heading off, because otherwise it'll go to the next line, I'll just put the closing H5 underneath here, and then I'll put in my pill. And then I would say like July, because that's when my conference is. 2 conferences actually. Let's hit run, and then there we go. There's my little July. And you can use entity codes in here too. So like, if you remember your entity codes from back in the day, there's hearts. That would give me a little heart in there. And so forth. So, that's kind of fun, right? All right, and so that's utilizing a badge in a pill shape. So that's that component. We're going to add one more component, and we're going to add it after that bulleted list that is in our bottom row. So let's go ahead and close out this one for now, so I don't need that row. The row that we need now is going to be this bottom one that says Tanya wants to visit. So I need to scroll down here and find that section. So here it is. We have a heading and we have a list. So in your instructions, they tell you after the bulleted list in this bottom row, we're going to add another heading. And I'll just use the same size heading and say learn more. And then under this, instead of another bulleted list, we're going to create a drop-down component. So kind of a drop-down list element. That's this thing. And then you'll pick like your places over here, and then when you click on it, it will take you to a website with beautiful pictures of that place. And you'll just go and Google and find you a nice place that depicts where you want to go. So I'll demonstrate one of these. I'm not going to do 3 of them, so you have to watch all 3. And then I'll show you how we can put this into 2 columns. Okay, so we're going to insert that. That is going to be a drop-down component. So back to Bootstrap, let's come down here to drop-downs. And then you're going to scroll down. We want the one with a drop-down link. So that's this one here. When you put your mouse over it, you can link. Okay, so we'll just go ahead and copy that. And again, you can change the colors on these. It's set to secondary, which is gray. So that's why this one is coming up that color. Again, if I wanted to switch to that gold color, I could set it to warning or red. All of that stuff is in there just like always. Okay, let's paste in this drop down, and then we kind of have to look at this for a minute because we got to see what all these things are for. So for the initial drop down, it doesn't go anywhere. So we're going to leave the placeholder here so that we can click the button. Okay, but we don't want to have the word drop down link on there because that looks dumb. We're just going to put click. You could put click here or whatever. And then these are the drop down items, the items in the drop down list, which should match whatever your places are here. So, if I said Hawaii was one of mine, then I'd put Hawaii here, and then whatever the other one is, and then whatever the other one is. And again, I'm not going to make you look at all of mine, but you should actually have all of yours here. Now, so this works. We've got our list down here now, and it opens up and it has the places, but they don't go anywhere yet. If you click on it, it just goes back up to the top of the page. That's because the hyperlink references are not updated. So if I want this to go to Hawaii, then I'm going to need to go in here and find, I need to spell Hawaii, right? Find a nice web page about Hawaii. GoHawaii.com's good. And then I'm going to copy that and put that into my hyperlink reference spot. And then you would repeat this process for all of your locations. Again, you don't need to watch me do it 3 times. So if I click there, then I click Hawaii. Now watch what happens here though. I'm going to refresh this one so I can do it on my big page. So if I click here and I click Hawaii, it opens, but it opens on top of my existing page. That's actually not proper. Whenever you are clicking a link that takes you off site, that link should open in a new tab. So we do need to modify this code just a teeny tiny bit. So in your hyperlink code, tag, your A tag, we need to add a target, and that's target equals underscore blank. That's how you open in a new tab. And you'll need to do that in all three of these so that they all open in their own tabs. And then, of course, don't forget to update your hyperlink references. Okay, and so that's how that's going to go. And now that will open in its own tab. There is kind of not really any gap here at the bottom of this row, so you might want to do padding on the inside or padding somewhere else. So you might mess around with some additional items, trying to add padding in here as you see fit. But we're going to fix this so this goes on the other side. So your next step is going to be to set up a 2-column setup, and this time we're actually going to use some CSS. So we're not going to use a Bootstrap component, we're going to use CSS. I'm going to type in columns here so you can see some of our options for columns. And there's a CSS columns property, and there's 2 different ones on here. I don't know which one I need to click on, but we'll look. This gives you some of the properties that you can set, column count and column gap. Really, those are the only 2 we need to mess with on this one. But you basically will style an element, have a column count, and then you can decide how far apart you want those columns to be. You could put a rule between the columns, so if you want to have a line between these, you could do that too. There's all kinds of different little properties that you can put in here. Okay, so you got all these different little guys going on here. Let's pop in here, and I'm going to create a style. I'm going to call this one newspaper and put a dot in front of it because it's going to be a class. And then we need a column count of 2. And then you can choose a column gap. And you probably don't really necessarily need one, but when they get closer together, if you don't want them to touch, you can decide then how many pixels. So say I said 40 pixels or whatever, it would put that gap in between them. All right, now I also need to go in here and apply that to this column. So in this same section of 12 columns that this is in, I need to put that in there. I called it newspaper. So that's what I'll put here is newspaper. All right, let's run it and see what it looks like. All right, there we go. So not the most beautiful thing in the world because I don't have my paragraph that goes in here, and so these are kind of running into each other. So in your instructions, I do have that you're going to put just a little paragraph to introduce that list, which is going to be important because there's not really an easy way to even up those columns. So underneath my learn more, I'm going to go ahead and put a little paragraph that's like, click here to visit sites about my favorite places. Maybe that's enough, and if not, we'll add some more. All right, there we go. So that works out fine there in that view. Let's go out here and see how it works here. Yeah, so that's looking good now. That column gap seems to be fine. There we go. So this is basically the gist of what you need to do to complete this project. Now, if you want to go above and beyond, there'll be a bonus session here for you. In the bonus session, for those of you who want some bonus points, you would create a second page. So you would create a second page where you get rid of some of these elements and perhaps try a different element. So I would leave your header and your carousel and your footer at the bottom down there. I definitely would leave those. But then I would probably get rid of this entire container in the middle. You could replace it with other elements, such as a jumbotron, which might be a little much whenever you've already got a carousel at the top. But basically, it's just a box that you can type some words into. So you could put a jumbotron there in place of the other. You could also make a menu at the top like this, so that if you have a second page, you have to be able to get to that second page. So you could add a menu at the top that will then take you to that second page. You could also add a button, because we didn't really use a button, where you can create a button that will take you to that second page too. So I have a bonus tutorial that will go through how to add that menu at the top, how to create your second page, and how to get rid of the container and replace it with a jumbotron or some other type of element. But otherwise, for the most part, if you've got all of your text updated, I don't have my places updated or my links, you'd be good. So congratulations if you made it this far, and I hope you learned a lot about Bootstrap and how easy it is to build websites utilizing Bootstrap in very minimal time.